Hey, Daryl, it's good to be here with you.
Hey, how are you?
Guys, we're so excited today to have this webinar focused in on how you can boost your MSP revenue with your L2 and L3 technician training. This is something that Daryl mastered in his MSP that he exited successfully a couple of years ago, as well as he teaches and instructs MSPs just like you, figuring out how to navigate to keep your L2 and L3s happy and, of course, increase revenue because you're investing in your team. Daryl, what is Total Seminars commitment to our MSP? Because you're leading the charge and your lead instructor.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
So sorry, guys, my audio is just a little crazy. Daryl, what is Total Seminars doing in helping our MSP navigate this with the training that they're providing?
Yeah, so we're providing training for base level new L0 techs, so techs that are coming in with very little experience into an MSP environment as a tier one or a knock technician. We're providing the training over the things that they do day to day in their job. So as they're working as a knock technician, they're spending some time with us each day to train them on phone skills and technical training around the basic technical things that they're going to be doing. Um, we're teaching them on how to get information from customers when they're calling in or emailing in or whatever it is, to how to gather information so that the higher level techs that they're working with don't have to spend their time on that. So we're trying to teach them as much as possible how to do the day-to-day things that they're going to be doing as a knock technician, so that they can take work off the plate of those higher tier techs above them.
Again, guys, remember, Daryl has been in the same seat that you've been in, right, Daryl? As an MSP business owner previously, as you've seen the need to help the L2s and L3s be successful in their organizations. And I cannot wait for you to go over what it does for them to really impact their organization with having L2 and L3 support, with technician training, with adding it to the bottom line. And Daryl, you've seen this most and foremost, really helping the business get successful. Can't wait for you to share.
Great.
All right. So as we look at what we're doing, what is the value of a skilled technician, Daryl? What does that look like for these MSPs?
I'm sorry, I missed that again.
I said, what is the value of a skilled technician for an L2, L3?
Well, so it's with L2s, really that's kind of your billing center of the organization, right? No matter how you bill your clients, your L2s are going to be the highest utilization. They're going to be the ones that are taking 90% of the tickets that come into the organization, and complete them. And so, really, I mean, we're going to have more tier two technicians than almost any other resource in the organization. That's kind of the end game of how to build within the organization, is to get it to those techs, let them take over and fix the problem and bill their hours, or count their hours against the contract, however you do that. But we typically want to see the utilization in this range of 75 to 85% for these technicians. Um, Really, what we want to see them doing is, number one, doing some triage, making sure that they're the right resource to be taking this, in which case, most cases they are, but escalating as needed, but also de-escalating. So if they're not, maybe they're the right one to manage the service request, but there's parts of that service request that can be handled at a lower level on the knock, and we want them to be pushing some of that work downhill as well. For our L3s, really their primary value to the organization is going to be in their availability. We want these people to be working on the highest level service tickets or the most urgent service tickets in the cases of emergencies. So they need to be available to take on new work consistently, where a tier two technician might have 20 to 25 concurrent service requests that they're working on in their queue. We want to see that our tier three techs under 10. We don't want them working on more than about 10 tickets at a time. And we want to be training those tier three technicians how to push that work downhill. Same way that tier two is pushing down to
So,
tier
Daryl, I
one.
love that. And I just appreciate the fact that, L3s, guys, are really the next step to freedom. I think, Daryl, many MSPs go, I can't do sales. I can't do marketing. I can't even grow my company because I'm still the technician in the business. How does that impact revenue when the technician, the CEO, the business owner is still doing all of the work, Daryl? This is such a big problem for our MSPs. They're always struggling with this.
Absolutely, yeah, and MSPs, especially under about $3 to $4 million, the owner is still taking service tickets. The owner is still still the highest technical resource in the organization, and they're not growing their companies because of it, right? That's really kind of the first main barrier that you have to growing beyond where you're at, is to stop doing that technical work. There's people out there that you can hire that can do the technical work. Whether or not you think you're the best tech in the world, there's other people that can do this work. And by getting out of that, it allows you to start taking over other tasks in the organization, sales tasks, customer service tasks, the things that really generate income and revenue. It allows you to take those over. Um, and so, when we talk about the tier three and availability, absolutely, from an owner perspective, we want you to be getting out of all of that work. It's just not work that needs to be done, and it's hard. I struggled with it because I love that work. It's why I started my own technical company, was so that I could do harder and harder technical work.
Daryl,
But at
can
the
I
end of the
find
day,
you in the server room? I'm sure I could.
what's that?
I said I'm sure I could find you in the server room when I can't find you on your phone.
As much as I can be, right? I want to be in the data center with the loud fans are going, and doing that high end technical work. But at the end of the day, as an owner of a company, you can't be doing that. You have to be working on sales on a daily basis and consistently in order to keep those sales numbers up. You have to be working on HR and hiring and making sure that you're bringing the right people into the organization. You have to be working on building a culture and all of these things that go into building your organization. And so in the smaller MSPs, you're never going to become a bigger MSP unless you can get out of that work.
So, Daryl, when we're looking at the current challenges for MSPs, talent shortage, technical complexity, customer expectations, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I just wanted to highlight three big ones that you and I deal with every single day when we talk to MSP business owners. What other challenges are they experiencing? Because I think the L2 and L3 training solves all three of these problems for them.
Sure, and really, from that perspective, I think we like to push that training from the bottom up, right? The standard escalation process is a service request comes into the knock. The knock does a little triage and figures out where it should go, and it usually goes to tier two. Tier two might not be able to fix that problem. They might spend a few hours on it, say it's too complicated, and escalate to tier three. But really, where the benefits and the revenue come from is being able to push that work back downhill to the bottom tier of your organization, and that comes from training your knock. Right? Is your knock needs to be able to take some basic service tickets. They need to be able to handle communication. So if an emergency is going on, we don't want a tier three tech who's sitting there working on an expensive emergency. Maybe there's 30 or 40 people that aren't working because a system is down that he needs to get fixed. We want him to be able to push some of that work down to tier two so that gets done faster. We want him to be able to push some communication work down into tier one. So, letting the customer know what's going on, checking in with everybody that's working on different parts of the problem, and communicating so that the tier three tech that's managing this issue is not having to stop what he's doing constantly to handle these minor tasks that can be done at a lower level. And all of that comes in at tier one training, right? When those bottom level technicians can handle communication, they can handle some of the basics, right? They can handle doing password resets, they can handle MFA resets, location and access changes, hardware prep, whatever work they can handle, they need to be handling. And by training them to do that, you're able to free up your higher end, more expensive technicians by pushing that work more and more downhill.
And Daryl, that's a perfect segue of why the benefits of L2 and L3 training are really at the total seminars, like they're excellent at doing and delivering this because they get it, they understand it, and they want the solution. So tell us about what the training is like.
So for our tier one training, we're training you on the day-to-day things that they're going to be doing in their job. These are people that maybe have never worked as technicians before. We typically, I can talk to the people over and over again, and I typically get the same story. They loved building computers when they were kids. They built computers between 12 and 15, their first computer. They played a lot of games on the computers as they were growing up. They were the ones in their family that took on the work. They were the ones that got called when grandma needed help or whoever it was. And so they might not have the direct training to do the job, but they do have some technical experience, right? They've done, they've been interested in this for a long time. They're not getting into this for no reason. And so when we bring them in, we want to give them the real live training on what they're going to be doing. We want to train them on how to review and monitor logs, right? Or review monitoring logs. We want them to be confirming backups, to how to triage emergencies, how to accept calls and tickets, how to manage, not only their own queue of work, but how to manage other people's queue of work to keep them from having to do it. So if they can go in and look at all tickets that haven't been responded to in more than 3 days, they can go identify customer service problems that are going to be happening, reach out to the client, and let them know what's going on. So there's a ton of work that can be done at that tier one position if the training is done to get them there.
Well, I think you guys heard right here. It's not to be boastful that you have so many tickets open. That's the opposite of what Daryl and the seminar are trying to do. I hate to say that, Daryl, because sometimes I hear others say, I've got thousands of tickets. I'm like, that's not something to be happy about. That's something to be overwhelmed and frustrated about because you want to be better at it. So, Daryl, tell us about the ticket count. And I think this is an important measurement of success or a place where people need to improve their operations and how they handle their business with tickets. The ticket count. What does that ticket count mean? Because that's really a big benefit of the L2, L3 training.
Absolutely. So with the number of tickets that are in your queue, right, you have to touch those tickets on a regular basis. And so as a tier two technician, I expect them to have around 20 tickets. If they're getting over 20 tickets, that's probably an issue. If they're getting under 20 tickets, then we probably have an issue with them not being utilized well enough. But every one of those tickets takes some effort every day to go through. And any ticket that hasn't been touched on a daily basis is probably a customer service issue. So tier two, we want to keep that about 20 tickets. That means they have plenty to work on, but they're able to get to those tickets on a daily basis to make sure that clients are being communicated with. When we start getting to 25 or 30, that's where our tier ones need to be catching those and saying, we know they're not getting touched every day, right? We know that that there's probably clients not being communicated with. There's probably some customer service issue there, and we need to start making calls to help that person out, or start figuring out if we can load balance and get those tickets to other people that have maybe are underutilized and need those hours. And then at the tier three level, we really want to see the tier three at around 50% utilization. We want about 50% of their time to be free to accept escalation tickets, to respond to emergencies. We want them to be available to take the most consequential service requests in our organization. And they can't do that if they have 20 or 25 tickets and they're utilized 85%. It's just not possible for them to respond reasonably to the absolutely important emergencies that are coming in. And the only way you can really keep those utilization targets up is by pushing work downhill. Because if you have all of that work being pushed uphill through the standard escalation process, you're going to have the opposite, right? You're going to have your tier threes that are at the most utilized, your tier twos that are kind of mid-tier utilized, and your tier ones that aren't utilized hardly at all.
But here it is, right, Daryl, as we look at the key areas of growth, when you had your business before you exited, what were some of the highlights of where your business succeeded so that you could get to a place to exit the business? What was that from your experience that really helped it grow? What did you do differently?
So, I mean, there were different issues that we ran into at different sizes, and so we called them barriers, right? Where you'd run into an issue that you couldn't fix, And because you couldn't fix it, you're talking about, either months to years of very little growth until you get those problems worked out and fixed. Earlier in the business, those revolved around sales. We had technicians that loved doing technical work. We gave a lot of stuff away for free because we just didn't feel like it should be charged. We didn't really understand how to keep up a consistent sales process. We could send marketing letters and all of that stuff, but then you'd send a bunch of marketing, you'd get busy, and you'd stop sending marketing, and then you'd get slow again. And so, we had to figure out kind of consistency in the sales process, and that got us past a certain tier. But then you get into a position where your sales is rolling, right? You have a lot of new customers coming in, and your operations just doesn't keep up. And the number one reason for that is you're not training the operations people that are coming in, right? You have people that just don't understand what they're supposed to be doing or why they're supposed to be doing it. You have a group of technicians typically on one team who are overloaded all the time, and you're losing customers because of it. And so while your sales is rolling and you have all these new customers coming in, you've got a bunch of customers walking out the back door as well. And really that comes down to getting the escalation process sorted out, getting your team so that you know who's responsible for what, getting your team sorted out, and then getting those teams trained on what they should be doing, right? You have to train that escalation process. They're not going to know that from scratch. You have to train that how to push work downhill. They're not going to know that from scratch. Most technicians are going to sit there and lock in on their queue, and they're going to work on that all day. And if 10 of those didn't get taken care of because they were locked in on the top 20, that's for somebody else to worry about.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into the backside operations of the business because, emerging technologies. Daryl, I love you and all of our MSPs because you guys get excited about a new technology you saw. And I've always said from stage, don't buy it unless you know how it works, how you're going to sell it, and how you're going to market it. Because it impacts the operations, and that emerging technology now becomes a hindrance. And the team doesn't know how to use it, right? I mean, doesn't that happen a lot, Daryl?
Well, so I think you have salespeople that are held to a number, right? And they have to make a number every month. And if they go into a customer and that customer says, "Hey, I need you to do this thing that you've never done before, and I'm willing to pay a lot for it," sometimes that sales rep is real tempted to just say, "Oh yeah, we do that." Especially as you're growing, you have these sales reps that are not hitting number on a regular basis, and they're saying, "Well, I'm not hitting number because you don't have the right products."
Right.
And so, really, you need a product development team that includes your operational people and your sales people. You need to be bringing in new products. If you're not bringing in new products, you're not keeping up that excitement level with your customers of what's coming out, and you're not selling as much as you can be. And so, from a sales side, you absolutely need to be bringing in those new products, but it has to be an organization-wide process, right? You bring in the new product. You create the product. You have to create exactly what's going to be produced. You have to have your technicians trained on whatever that new product is. Your solutions architects need to know how to quote it. VCIOs or sales reps need to know what they're bringing out to your clients. And if all of those things don't happen, that product is going to fail. And that's typically costly for an organization because you've sold some of these. You've sold 3 or 4 of them. And now as a failed product, it's no longer a product in your catalog, but you still have to support those 3 or 4 clients that are using this one product. So it's absolutely important to make sure that when you build a product, you do it intentionally. It's not just sold as a response to a client need. It's built throughout your organization as something that you can sell, you can install and deploy, and you can support. And if you can't do those 3 things, it's going to turn into a cost center for you over time.
Well, and that's really the next step, right? Is implementing these training programs, whether it's a part of a role to do a career path with your L2s, L3s. Some of you need to just establish a certification process because maybe they're going through what I consider the starting stage of their career. And then, Daryl, you're right. If the business owner is so busy doing all the work, he can't grow the company, so he doesn't know what he needs help with. So effectively putting that in, how would you do that? an MSP, and how are you going to teach that with 12 seminars?
So, I mean, it all comes back to training, right? It's making sure you've developed this product, you think it's viable for your organization, you think it's something your clients want, and now it's training your sales reps how to sell this product, training your techs how to support this product. And the problem with that is, it's great to have a product development team that meets weekly. But as all of us MSP owners know, training is item number 54 on our list of things to get done on a daily basis. And emergencies are number one on our list. And so as an MSP, we experience emergencies all the time. We have 500 or 600 customers out there. And every one of them is having some sort of an emergency on a recurring basis every 40, 50 days that we have to respond to immediately. And the number one thing that gets pushed off when we respond to those emergencies is training. It's just the last thing on everybody's list of things that need to get done. And so you have this brand new product that's ready to go, ready to be sold, ready to create revenue for your organization. But because you can't train your technicians on how to support this product, you can't train your sales reps on how to sell this product. You try to do that training internally, and you end up just putting it at the bottom of your list every time, and it never ends up getting done. So by bringing in an outside organization that can help you with some of this training, help you build some of the training processes, and help make sure that you're consistently getting around to the training, you can make sure that training's happening throughout your organization on that consistent basis. And it's not about, hey, we had an emergency yesterday, we had an emergency today, and we're going to have an emergency tomorrow. So that leaves us Friday to do all the training. It's about making sure you get a little bit of that done every day. And by having an outside organization manage that, like Total Seminars, you can push that training out to your techs in short periods of time around everything else that they're doing, right? They still have to respond to emergencies, but we're going to set aside that hour or 2 hours for them to handle the training that they need to get done.
And that's where I think, Daryl, the bridge needs to be made with having a plan, being able to have the training yourself so that you can transition your organization in there. A lot of times the CEO or the business owner doesn't know how to do that for others, right? What do they say? I can do it for everyone else, but I don't know how to do it for myself. That's a
Right.
common problem.
And I think it's almost a block, right? It's we want to be doing the things that we want to be doing, and we don't want to be doing these other things. And we kind of put this block in our mind that says, I'm just not going to do it. If I don't get to work on this technology thing that I really wanted to work on, I'm not going to work on training. I'm not going to work on the other things that I need to be doing.
And that's where this case study comes in, everybody. One of the things that's really powerful is being able to apply the training to real world experiences. And Daryl, I love every time when we do our weekly lives that this is something that we really talk about is real problems, real solutions in real time. So let's talk about a case study from your experience. Having an MSP who has a high ticket count, maybe losing clients even just as fast as they're selling them, and then of course trying to keep the current clients happy. How can the training with Total Seminars and you help them establish it? Maybe there was a case study of who you've already worked with that you can share.
Yeah, so GCS Technologies is one of the companies that we work with regularly. We handle the training for all of their new knock technicians as they come in the door. So they give us a certain amount of time every week. The technicians give us a certain amount of time every week. And otherwise, they're working as MSP technicians on a day-to-day basis. But we come in and we train them in a way that when they go through training today, we expect them to be putting that training to use at work tomorrow. And one that reinforces the technologies we're training them. It reinforces the processes we're training them. It reinforces, everything that we're going over is reinforced immediately as they're working as MSP techs. And I think that's important to know that it's very difficult to train somebody that's not already doing this. I mean, part of becoming a better technician is putting the training to work on a day-to-day basis. And so if we're training phone skills one day, they're going into work the next day and taking 25 phone calls and having to put that training to work. The same thing with technical ability, right? Is as that technician, that tier one technician gets a little more experience and starts getting training over Azure and AWS and Office 365 and those basic tickets that they're seeing on a daily basis, they're taking more and more of those service requests that don't need to go up to tier two, that free up some of that tier two time, and gets them billable. And so, one of the things that we want to see is within about 3 months, we want that tier one technician to be starting to build a utilization target, right? We want them to be billing a certain amount of hours every week. And we do that by building up, number one, their technical skills, number two, their ancillary skills, their MSP skills, and number three, their confidence. They need to have the confidence to be able to take a service request that they maybe have seen, they've done in training, but have never done live before. And so, one of the things that we think is a big deal in our training is that every Friday is mentoring time. We don't do any training on Fridays. When we bring these techs through, we allow them to bring service requests that they've taken, that they have in their queue, and we can walk them through how to get started or how to do the whole ticket. So as they're coming through the training, they're also getting some mentoring time around real world service ticket management and how to get through some of these to give them the confidence to start taking more and more and more tickets.
So in that case study there, I just want to be really clear. The MSP business owner had a goal. You guys helped them achieve that because you were seeing failing what they were currently doing. And that establishing maybe a Friday, like, hey, we're just going to support, we're going to, encourage you, we're going to give you all the training you need, helped everyone in the company to understand this is what we're going to do better.
That's right. And really, by bringing that training into the lower tier level, what we're doing is creating an organization that can push work downhill, that can keep the availability at the top of the organization. Right. And by doing that, we're making better tier two techs, right? When tier three techs are passing more and more work down to tier two, that gives them the ability to learn on service requests that they might not have seen before. When tier two techs are able to pass it down because you're doing that training in the knock, when they're able to pass work down, those knock techs are getting ready to be tier two techs much faster. And what that does is, we talked about earlier that you have a shortage in the industry of these technicians. It's hard to hire. It's expensive to lose one of these technicians because it takes so long to replace them. And by building up that knock, pushing that work downhill that builds up each of these levels to be ready to go up to that higher level, when you do lose a tier two or a tier three tech, somebody's ready to plug in, right? And it's not somebody that you hired from outside of your organization who doesn't know your clients, who you may not know really speaks very well to your clients. It's somebody that you've already worked with for months at a time, somebody that your clients have already worked with, somebody that everybody's comfortable taking over at that next level. And we get that tier one ready to move up, or the tier two ready to move up, so that you have that person ready to plug and play in your organization at any point in time when you do lose a tier one or tier three tech, or tier two or three tech. And that's just it's part of our industry. There's a lot of poaching out there. There's a lot of bigger companies that love to hire MSP techs because they do everything. And so by setting up this system where you're ready to go with that next tech to take over that position at any point in time, you're taking a huge load off of your HR staff having to bring that person in, off of your clients having to learn this new person and how they work. You've got somebody that's just ready to go and get plugged in, and you can move on as an organization. And you're hiring a tier one tech who, again, has very little experience and is available, almost immediately.
Right. So the next case study there, I think, is powerful, is for those who already established MSPs. And the reason why, because a lot of these guys finally get to the step where it's a high per seat price, right, for clients. They're not the break and fix shop. They're charging $7, $8, $1,200 per seat because of the industry they're in, the services they offer. So how do they absorb something like this? Because I feel like that's the scalability that they come to Total Seminars looking for.
That's right. I mean, you're when you've become the organization that has that extremely high per seat price, you've targeted your customers very closely, and I mean, these are clients that are willing to spend more to get a higher level of service. And if you're bringing in people consistently from outside of the organization that have not been trained in how you do things and how things work within your organization. They haven't been working with you for long. I mean, I would say it's probably a 50-50 shot at whether that person is going to come in and fit in your organization and fit with those higher level clients to be ready to take on that work. Whereas if you have that technician that has already been trained, that's already been taking work from these clients, already been speaking to the clients, it's just a much smoother transition to be able to bring that person up as opposed to bringing somebody in from outside.
And that's really where I think the next bridge is, Daryl, is to monetize this technician, right? That now is an L2, L3. We've done it on our lives. We've talked to them about, upgrading their suite of services. Say if you want a 24/7 technician, you've got to pay a little bit more to make this happen. So monetizing this is an important thing. How can we do this in the organization?
So I think the number one way that we found over 20 years was that we have these our most expensive technicians are our level 3 technicians, right? And we have these technicians. We need to maintain their availability. That's what our clients are really paying for at the end of the day, is the ability to get that high end technician working on an emergency right away when everything is down and their business isn't running. And so the number one way we found was by monetizing that availability. And what we found was we had a tier of client, typically that was a little bit larger, that had some of their own internal IT staff. Those internal IT staff were already about tier 2 technicians. Maybe they think they're tier 3, but typically about tier 2. And they don't want to call into the NOC and talk to a NOC technician for 15 or 20 minutes to figure out what kind of issue they have. They don't want to talk to the tier 2 technician that's going to call them back and walk them through doing all the things they've already done, right? This person that works in that organization probably has already tried those things. And so they don't want to go through this typical escalation path. And so you can sell the availability of your tier 3 technicians by bypassing some of those tiers that they don't want to go through. And so if you have a client that wants to call in and put in a service request and have that service request go directly to a tier 3 technician instead of having to go through that whole escalation process, you can charge for that. We had probably 40% of GCS clients that paid to have a bypass there where they went straight to tier 3 because they've already tried everything that the tier 2s and tier 1s are going to try. And they paid plenty for us to be able to hire more tier 3 technicians and keep their availability up.
And Daryl, that's where we come guys into with the offer. Not only does Daryl instruct it, give you real life experiences, but with total seminars and what Daryl is doing to help you MSPs, they have a special offer for you to sign up for the next class, which is this coming April. I can't even believe it, Daryl. People need to invest this immediately to grow their business. So tell them about what offer is.
So we have a buy one, get one offer. You can either put in 2 technicians for the price of 1, or if you want an operations person to evaluate this for future growth and future, how they're going to organize around it, you can put in one of your technicians and one of your operations people. And we're going to cover the cost of one of those seats so that you can come in and evaluate the program, see what we're doing, see the value that we're going to provide in the organization, so that we can get more and more technicians to go through this program moving forward.
Well, and Dara, I just want to say this, guys, this is part of the investment of growing your business with the human capital that you have so that they are going to help you grow your business. And Daryl, again, it's a buy one, get one, or strategically place the operation with that seed, and that you guys are willing to help them navigate through this to evaluate what they need from the training.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we want to get that cycle moving of bringing in knock techs, getting them very quickly ready for that L2 seat, so that when you lose L2s and L3s, you're ready to move that L2 up to an L3 position, and you have that plug and play knock tech ready to go into that L2 position. That's the goal at the end of the day, and we'd love to see operations people sitting in so that we can help them build that process out.
Wow. Thank you so much, Daryl, for your time today, providing this webinar, this live feed to our entire LinkedIn audience. and we are going to be seeing total seminars helping transform your MSP business. And with Daryl's experience and leadership, he's going to guide you through the process because he has been there. Thanks so much, Daryl, for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Man, Daryl, that was awesome.